Okay, so today we're going to talk about laminating tops. So we did a previous video released about last week about the wood selection and making sure that it's acclimated and everything. Let me explain to you real quick why we're doing this. So last year we made planters with this profile on here. So we had the groove across there and across the top and then on the bottom as well. So whenever we made a planter video that used one of these, we referred back to the video that made just this for the sake of efficiency and time. That's what we're doing now. We're going to be building a bunch of benches and coffee tables and stuff like that, not exclusively, but we're going to piece them in here and there. And then when we go to do the top, we're going to say, okay, refer back to the top video. That way we can keep the videos pinned down to maybe 12, 15 minutes as opposed to dragging them on for 25 minutes or half an hour. Okay, so that's what we're doing. This is the laminating video, and we're going to have a wood finishing video and the fastening the top on video coming up shortly. So this is what we're aiming for. So I didn't put anything in this about dominoes because if you have a domino, you already know what you're doing. This is more for the beginner. Okay, so bench there, top like that. Anyway, you get the idea. And so we filmed this a while ago. It was nice and warm back then. Pretty cold right now. It's the middle of January. And if you've come from a future video to watch this, tell me how I look in the future video. All right, let's get to it. Okay, so this is one of our bench tops, and we're going to do this one in two different ways. One side we're going to do in pocket holes, and the other side we're going to do in biscuits. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to start with the pocket holes. So I'm going to, this one's the center board. If you saw in the previous video, it's been straightened on both sides. These sides were just the factory edges because they don't matter that much getting finished later. But anyway, I'm going to flip it over in order. Okay, so what I like to do is I'll just mark doesn't have to be precise. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That'll work. That way when we go to put the boards back together, I'll just put a check mark down here to match that check mark so we know they're the same side. I'm going to go alternating from each hole. Probably not necessary, but that's what I'm going to do anyway. Out of the way. Use a piece of scrap wood here, a little bit level. Maybe turn the board the right way around, Greg. You're drilling into the bottom the way you're planning on, not wrecking the top. Make sure your depth collar is set properly. So we're going to skip one. So those three are done. So we're going to drill at that one, and that one. This is nice for most applications. I don't particularly like it for this one, so I'm going to take my Craig jig here, my little cheapo one, which these are only about $21. I'm going to set it for 1.5 inches because that's what our stock is. I'm going to set the stop color for the right 1.5 inch as well. So now I'm switching from a $100 pocket hole jig to a $21 pocket hole jig. Well, why am I doing that? Like I said, it's a comfort thing. So I'm just going to set that there. I just find it a lot easier to keep track of everything using that one. And because I don't put drawers under my benches, I can easily put a quick clamp under there. Okay, so you can see them offset. Okay, so now I'm switching up my bit to my driver bit, and I'm using my drill to put these in, and I'm going to set my clutch at about 10 because you're not supposed to use an impact driver with pocket hole screws because you could over torque them. Let's see if they'll want to fall out when I go to glue them. Okay, these bench tops are coated in polyurethane, so I can get glue on them, and then as long as I don't let it dry, it's no problem. So I'm just going to set it there because I know it's nice and flat. Before I do that, let me just make sure there's no crud on this one. Okay. Now I don't have to be perfect on both ends because they're going to be cut off. And I'm just doing this to keep the glue from acting like a slip and slide for the boards. It's also going to help to keep the screws from pushing it apart. Okay, here's your main advantage of this form of laminating, is that you don't need to have any clamps on it. And after you're done, and it's all dried up, you can take the screws back out if you want to use them on something else, because the glue is what's holding it together. The screws are merely working as clamps. So just like any clamp, when the project is done, take them off. Okay, so there's our pocket hole side, and now we're going to put biscuits in this side. So I'm going to do the same thing. Let me just put a check mark here just so it'll get turned around. And the line there. Biscuits are fairly forgiving too, so it's got to be in the ballpark. Avoid that knot. We want to be down at least halfway. So it's unplugged. I'm just going to push it down. We got 1.5 inch boards, so 3/4 of an inch to the center of the blade. Okay, so I'm going to adjust this a little bit. Okay, so there, we're just a little bit shallow of 3/4 of an inch, which is fine. Because you're better to be closer to the bottom than closer to the top, just in case. It's a good habit because swelling more in 3/4 inch boards, but it's a good habit, that way you just don't screw up down the road. There are people that know a lot more about biscuit joiners that will explain that if you're interested. So just line it up with our center line. And I'm using number 10 biscuits. So you can see the line through the window there. Everybody looks nice and clean. Okay. So like I said, number 10. That is way too many. So before you get too carried away, just make sure everything lines up. See how forgiving they are. There's about 1/4 of an inch overhang there. Okay, everything lines up good. Okay, so I'm happy with that, so it's time to glue it up. Okay, we're not going to overdo it here because, much like with the pocket screws, the biscuits aren't really doing anything after the glue dries. As you're doing this, better with your finger, because then you can feel any little crud on there. Okay, because I'm building it on a nice flat bench top, I know that it's flat. And trust me, in this application for a bench top, once it's fastened to the bench, those biscuits are doing absolutely nothing. So it's just important that they're there to keep everything in line while the glue dries. Let me just make sure I get any extra glue out of here. And now, I'm going to take a pipe clamp. I'm doing it this way because I want to make sure there's not a bunch of glue seeping out the bottom when I flip it over. I don't want to have a huge mess to clean up. Okay, now we're sitting flat on our pipes. Now we can tighten her up real nice. And any glue that seeps out the top, I can easily clean up. If I create little indents in here, I'm not going to crank it right down, but if I create little indents, I will be sanding them off later anyway. Better to put more clamps on than it is to crank them way down. That's going to hold it real nice while it dries. So let me now just make sure I get these blobs of glue out of here. It'll create a lot less work for me later if I do that. Okay, now we let it dry. Okay, next bench top is going to be all dowels, but we're going to do each side in a different way. Okay, so I've got the layout marked. This is the bottom. Same thing, I put the lines on there. I got my check marks so I know which side goes to which. Start out with the first one here. I'll just extend my lines up so I can see them easier. Okay, so we got the Miles Craft joint mate, linked in the description, of course. So you take this, and I have set my stock collar to go through. It's essentially a drill block as well. And then a little bit more than halfway through my dowel to give a little bit of room for the glue. So if you see, it's just a little bit past to give a little reservoir there. So anyway, you can find instructions on how to use it specifically, so I'm not going to waste a lot of time on it. But I'm going to use the 3/8 hole, which is in the middle, so I set it there, and then I push it off to one side, make sure my line is in the center relatively of the hole, doesn't matter that much. Brad point drill bit. I've seen so many people use steel bits for this. These are not expensive, guys. You got a nice little point on there, and you're going to see later why we need that. Okay. And maybe we'll just tighten that enough. How's that sound? Okay, same thing. Just rip it right along, exactly the same. Okay, we're going to take our dowels, just dry fit them in there. Okay, so we're going to set the depth. We know that these are exactly in the center because we used this properly. Okay, so now we're going to take the hole that we used to drill it, and we're going to stick it right on top. We're going to push this guide piece over, and then we're going to tighten it down. So now we know we have the same depth. Okay, so now we're going to take our other board. So we go like this. Just for the sake of making this a little easier, I'm going to clamp them together. So what's happened here is, if you look back in the footage, the center board is a little bit skinnier because I cut down both sides. So I'm just going to lift it up level and clamp it. It's going to make this much easier and much more precise. So we line that up in the center there, and our depth stop is holding this right directly in the center. So we're just going to transfer that hole. All right, we're going to do the same thing all the way along. Okay, let's clean up a little bit here just so it's going to sit flat on there. Okay, so everything fits together. So we know that side's good. So we'll set that one aside. Now, for this one, I'm going to use a completely different method. Make sure I get them facing the same. And see, that's why we put the check mark. Got myself all turned around there. Okay, so we're going to turn this one up. Do the same thing. Transfer our lines across. Okay, now we have a Milescraft drill block, link down below. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to use a 3/8 hole. So we're going to line that up so our line is through the center. You might not be able to see it. And because this is meant to go on a 2x4 like this, it's sitting nice and flat on the corners here, so it's pretty much exactly where you want it. Doesn't have to be perfectly straight because it's going to get transferred over to the other one anyway. So these are brad point bit. Get nice solid contact there. Straight down. This is why we use the drill block, so it doesn't wobble at all. Okay. Clean that out a little bit. Okay, so then we're going to take our dowel points. See if we can get them squeezed in there. Okay, so I've never used this set of dowel points before. They're fitting pretty tight. These are supposed to be imperial, but they did not fit in the 3/8 hole very well, so they might be metric. Being passed off as imperial. Okay, I got myself all confused here. So apparently I had one of these boards flipped the other way around when I put the dowels in. It makes no difference. You can just see that the lines don't line up anymore, but the boards themselves line up. So that problem is solved. But yeah, I made myself really question things there for a moment. So now these ones are not going to line up for the exact same reason. So what we're going to do, we got our points in there. They're all nice and flush. So we're going to take this like that. Okay. So we got our points. Probably going to be pretty hard to see on camera. Okay, so I'll just highlight them here. One of the points is right there. One is right there. One's right there. And one is right there. Okay, so now the premise behind this is we're using, of course, our brad point bit. So we stick it into the 3/8 hole, line up our point in the divot. Okay, I'll clean these out a little bit. Just so you know, I have the depth set the exact same because the drill block is also made by Milescraft, so the exact same. All right, now let's see how hard these are to get out. That one's not bad. Yeah, I think pounding them in there helped form the hole better. All right, moment of truth. Well, I'd say it worked pretty good. All right, let's get it glued up. So now that the dowels are drilled in, this is exactly the same installation on both sides, as long as we don't get the boards mixed up. So make sure you use fluted dowels. You get the little ribs around there to give space for the glue to get into. If you use the regular straight ones, you pound them in there, the glue's got nowhere to go. All right, so we'll just take the center board here. Doesn't matter where you start as long as you don't get things messed up. A little bit of glue in there. Much like with the other ones, the dowels are only here to hold it while it's drying, so you don't need to be too worried about it. The way this thing is built, they're going to be providing no strength at all. All right, for good measure, we're just going to put a little bit in here. Like I said, I don't think it's going to do anything, but it's good to get in the routine of doing things properly. All right, that's good for the minute while we get everything else glued up. See if I can do this one a little bit easier than the last one. Usually the second one goes a whole lot easier. I wonder why that is. Wow, that is unbelievably stupid. You're supposed to actually push this over against the board before you start endlessly cranking the thing. Okay, so obviously our clamps are not even right now. But rather than doing that really funky dance I did the last time around, make sure I'm sitting on the clamps. So if you're worried about it doing the cupping, just put a call on it. I'm going to make sure there's no glue underneath before I clamp this on here. So with 3 boards, you're not likely going to have a lot of cupping here, but I'm just going to show you the technique, which I'm sure you've probably seen before. And make sure, of course, there's no glue in there because it's going to be harder to get it apart for one thing. Okay, so I guess I better, well, I'm going to do a preliminary cleaning of the glue here. And then after I clamp it up nice and tight, we'll see if that made any more come out. I am staining this, so you don't want any glue in there. All right, so let it dry. Okay, so there you have it. So be sure to like and subscribe and give us a comment. And definitely want to subscribe if you want to see the videos of all the builds coming up. There's lots of exciting stuff to do. And also, if you could, if you haven't already, go over to our DIY channel and help us get to 1,000 subs so we can get it monetized, because we want to put all the planter videos on the DIY channel, but we would also like to make money off them too. So thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.